Hello, everybody. Welcome to PowerShell Wednesday. I'll give you all a few minutes to funnel all in. We have a very special guest today. And as you know, we do PowerShell Wednesday every single Wednesday at this exact time right now. If you're watching this live, that's 2 p.m. Eastern for those of you watching the recording. Thank you for coming back and circling with us. We have an awesome learning vibe we've been having this year. I think we were just talking, Morten, before we went live. I think we started these like the second week of January this year, and we've gone strong ever since and covered a lot of good content. And we're going to today cover a topic which we haven't covered yet, that being something that, Morten, you're quite fond of. That's Azure Automation, right? You're going to give us a little primer.
Definitely. Primary focus will be Azure Automation and a bit getting started and some pitfalls, and nice to know.
Exactly.
Before getting started, that is.
Yes, because there are, a lot of things, they look easy when you just see like, oh, cool, that was really simple. But when you actually get into the nuts and bolts of it, sometimes there are challenges that can arise. But I think we'll maybe cover some of those today. But Morten, I think take it away, my friend. If you can share your screen, I'll get it up there.
Yep.
There we are.
Is it okay? Does it look okay?
Maybe a little bigger.
A little bigger. You're taking up all my screen space.
How does that look, everybody? I'm on a tiny little laptop. I think run it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep.
Well, first up, getting started with Azure Automation. If you haven't created one yet, then it's pretty basic. Just go to a resource group. And if you haven't created that one, then we can go over that as well. Go to a subscription, go to resource groups, create something random, select your region, create. And I'm pretty sure everyone has tried this at least once. Once you have a resource group, just press create again and search for Azure Automation. Or rather just automation, because we're already in Azure. Create it, and once that is spun up, just give it a name. Choose your region again. And I believe it has to be some unique name for each automation account. Create it, and in just a few minutes, you'll have an automation account. And since I already created one for this presentation, we'll just jump to that, if it'll let me. Right. First thing being met by is this pretty simple screen. The first thing you'll see is the try runtime environment experience. We won't cover that straight away, but we'll come back to it. Just the basic layout is your overview, activity logs, access controls, just like the usual panes in Azure. And then you have the specific ones for Azure Automation. The primary one being Runbooks. This is where all your PowerShell scripts will be located. And for each PowerShell script, it'll have a name. It'll have a authoring status. It could be published. It could be edited or in edit. If it is in edit, it won't run in the edited mode, but it will still run in the published mode. I'll get back to it in just a bit. The runbook type, so in this instance, PowerShell. You have a few different options, being PowerShell, graphical PowerShell. I haven't touched that at all, and if you're doing something graphical, then I wouldn't use PowerShell, but that's just my take. And you have Python as well in Azure Automation. Then you have your runtime version as well. Could be 5.1, 7.1 has been deprecated, I believe. You have 7.2, and then you can create a custom runtime environment, which I'll get back to, supporting 7.4. And you'll have your last modified date. And just jumping straight into a runbook. This is just a plane to show you the latest runs from this runbook. You'll also have the complete overview of jobs. And just to note, these jobs or this list is only active for 1 month. So after a month, these jobs will disappear. So if you don't have something custom to log this, you'll just lose the logs for this automation. You can set something custom up, or you can connect log analytics and then store it within that. Further on that, we can schedule each runbook and automation. Pretty easy, just add a schedule. You'll first have to create a schedule. Then you can link a runbook to the schedule. So multiple runbooks can be linked to one specific schedule. And I don't have any, so let's just create one PDQ ASD, set it to reoccurring, and set it to recur every once an hour, once a day, once a week, once a month. And you'll also be able to choose which days of the week it should run. So even though I only chose that it needs to recur every one, and then selecting week, I can select that it has to run every day during that week. Or if I select month, I could select basically every day. Doesn't really matter, doesn't have a limitation. You could also just say run on the last day of the month, each month, if you wanted to. And you can also set up an expiration. So this schedule is active from this date, so the one specified up here, till the date selected down here. So for example, the 8th of June. Or actually, I believe it's August, yeah. The US timestamps confuses me sometimes. That's basically it for schedules. Pretty easy creating it. And once you create it here, then you can modify the parameters to run this specific runbook with. This can both be specific parameters that your runbook needs, and it can be chosen to be run directly in Azure or on a hybrid worker. I'll get back to hybrid workers in just a bit. It's basically a way to allow you to connect your on-prem resources to the cloud. So instead of you having the only possibility to actually run PowerShell in the cloud, you can also run it on a hybrid worker, which then allows you to connect with on-prem resources like your file shares or something else for that matter. Any questions so far?
I don't see any questions, but I do have a question. So to get that hybrid worker set up, do you pretty much just have to like install an agent and then you're able to select it?
That's the basics of it. I'll get to it a bit later, just after covering the Runbook settings here. Then we'll look into hybrid worker and the setup behind it.
Sounds good. And yeah, everybody, if you have questions as we go, feel free to ask them and we can get you covered there.
Yep. And just to cover how to unlink a schedule as well, you don't use the enable button and set it to no, because that will disable the whole schedule for all the runbooks connected to that schedule. Instead, you just press on the unlink, and then it will unlink it from that specific runbook. Just don't get those two confused, because it can be a bit annoying if you have 10 runbooks connected to one schedule, and then that schedule is disabled just because somebody wanted to unlink a specific runbook from a schedule. It's a bit of a gotcha for you. Moving on, we also have webhooks. Webhooks basically allow us to start a runbook from anywhere, and this schedule is set to expire at a certain date. I believe it can last up to 5 years, and this URL is basically what is used to authenticate or to run the given schedule, or runbook rather. And then you can also modify the parameters, default parameters, and also the run settings for a specific runbook. And creating that basically gives us this webhook. And with this, we can just see that it is enabled. We can disable it, and we can also change our parameter settings as well after it has been created. And normally you wouldn't change it after it's been created, because it can have a bit of impact on whatever you have launched to production. So I would suggest creating a new one if you need to test something or need to change something. Hope that makes sense for everyone. And the webhooks just allows you to basically send an invoke REST method from PowerShell, and then you can start up this runbook directly from your console or from SCOM or Zabbix or wherever you're going.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What problem would you use a runbook to solve?
Well, I can tell you from our perspective at my work, we use it a bunch for self-services from ServiceNow. So ServiceNow is basically just the front end for Azure Automation. In basic terms, we have at our organization one singular webhook which handles all requests from ServiceNow and parameterizes each parameter sent to the Azure Automation webhook or runbook. Let's just say it's this authenticate runbook. It will receive all calls from ServiceNow, which with certain parameters. For example, the runbook name and the parameters that is needed to run this automation could be used to add administrator access to a given server, or maybe some modify permissions for a given file share, or even giving access to a given subscription. Could be a bunch of things. Could also be this is not so much for the webhook part, but for some instances, you might want to save some money on Azure virtual machines or other things in Azure. So you could use it to scale up or scale down given certain parameters. Just create an alert, then you can launch that, set that alert to launch your Logic app, and then your Logic app can launch this Azure Automation. Just to give a few examples.
Nice. And I like that example of like the ticketing system, using it as like a front end sort of thing. I think that's like a changing point when people get to the spot where they're interacting with their ticketing system for automation stuff. It's just a whole different world once you can do that.
Definitely. And actually, during my last maternity leave, I wanted to create some self-service part because I was tired of our ServiceNow department being a bit slow. So I created, let me just see if I can find it. Note that this is not production ready at all. This was just a proof of concept, but just to show that you can create your own front end for it as well, and then just bind it in with invoke REST methods and Microsoft Graph. And you could basically expose a self-service by exposing a given runbook. I'm actually not sure how much of this I got done making, but just to give the gist, you can have a runbook. You could change the name, the display name exposed to the user, and then change the parameter names to be user-friendly. And then for this application, I chose to include some custom groups that I created in the app registration to say, well, this group of people that have the permission service desk or HR or something else just needed to type in the group names here, and then only this self-service would be exposed to them. So just to give an idea, if somebody wants to develop something front end in that regards, then you could do something like this. This is written in Python, so you could just clone it and then continue development yourself. I know from my perspective, at least, it's a bit dead currently. I haven't touched it for quite a while. But just to give some inspiration for someone else.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So I guess basically this is to answer like, what can you use it for? I guess you could think of Azure Automation maybe like a tool for your tool belt, where you could use it as the starting point for a whole bunch of stuff. Like once you have it in your arsenal of tools, you can really do quite a bit with it. Quite similar to PowerShell in some ways, right?
You definitely can. I mean, this is just your orchestrator for your PowerShell scripts. I mean, you could just as well use schedule task on a given Windows server, but it has limits in that regards. And I know there's the development of or I don't remember the tool, but the EASE or IIS application for PowerShell that Christian Ritter has made a self-service front end for and showed off at PowerShell conference, I believe. You could do that as well. you're more than welcome to. But I think there's more work to it than just meets the eye. So this is just a nice getting started entry point.
And can you increase the display just a bit more?
Yep. 175.
Looks good.
Yep. And continuing further down the list of pane options, you have properties. Basically shows the same thing on the overview page. And description, you can provide a description. You can also not. That's up to you. I never use it because we just use the source control integration. Getting that back to that as well. Another option on each runbooks, by default, it will not run any automation verbose, and it will not run with the progress records at all. So if you want that enabled, you have to do it based upon the runbook and then enable each one. Unfortunately, there's no way around that as far as I know. It might be corrected in the chat, but let's see. Other than that, task, I have never used them. So yeah, this is a new one for me. I don't use them, so maybe you can find a use case for it, but I haven't seen one and I haven't tested it, so no clue. And if you wanted a template for some infrastructure as code, you have that as well, just like any other resource in Azure. That's it for Runbooks. Any questions to it? Just for this basic example?
Looks good so far.
Great. Moving on to jobs. All jobs categorized from each runbook is in the pane jobs. You can search for runbooks by name, which is a bit annoying if you only have the job ID. But just to give a example of how you can find a given job using a job ID, you could let me just take this one, just to get a job ID. And these are unique for each runbook execution. And I took the job ID from the authenticate pane. If we go into a test runbook or even any other runbook, go to the jobs pane. Now we can find jobs and then search for job ID. I find it a bit annoying that it isn't included on the total job pane, for me at least. And another thing that is a bit annoying as well is that it will still display the name of the runbook I went into instead of the actual job that I searched for. So that is a bit annoying, but it is a way to find the given job based upon the job ID. I haven't found another way except for using PowerShell or something else, but if you want to do it in the GUI, then this is how you can do it. And just to show the output for this job, it looks a bit weird, but that's something I'm getting to as well. Has something to do with the runtime environment. And if we wanted to jump to the given runbook, we can do that as well by just clicking on the authentication. It'll still show the incorrect name, but looking at the code, just taking this one and going back to the complete overview and back to authenticate and into view. It's actually not the same code. So they might have changed that at some point. I know it used to work like that, but yeah. Some of the experience in regards to something that isn't actually supported might vary a bit. But yeah, looking up the job ID still works, I know for a fact. Right, moving on a bit. Actually, let's take a look at some of the runtime environments, because that is something that is quite handy as well. Upon creation of a given runbook, you'll be asked to choose which runtime version you're using. Can be 7.2, can be 7.1, and can be 5.1. And then you can give a description and review and create. Done deal. Pretty easy. And going back to the overview here, we have a new runtime environment experience. When we enable that, we get this pane for runtime environments. And within this one, we can create our own runtime environment. Let's say PowerShell, and let's just call it PDQ for that matter. Doesn't really matter. And now we can select PowerShell 7.4, which I believe for some is something that is greatly appreciated. Also because 7.2 is no longer supported by the PowerShell product group. So that's an added benefit that you get support from Microsoft if you have something in PowerShell that isn't working as expected. And to add some packages to this runtime environment, for each runtime environment, you'll have to add the modules that you're going to use in this runtime environment. You can add these after you have created your environment as well. You can also add them while you're creating your runtime environment as well. And this one just looks at the PowerShell gallery. A common one is PS Windows Update, so let's just try and add that one. Clicking on Next, clicking on Create. And then I'll start creating the PDQ one and pressing on Refresh. We can see it right here. Clicking into it, we can see that it is currently importing the PS Windows Update. Before it's done importing, we can't use any of the CMDlets that is available in PS Windows Update. So if you just installed a module and for some reason your automation isn't working, it might be because it hasn't finished installing yet. And this is also where you can delete your modules for a given runtime environment. And you can also add other modules from the PS gallery. Easy as that. And the AZ module is something that comes by default on all the AZ runtime environments, along with the Azure Click for 7 Plus, I believe. I'm not sure if it's actually included in 5.1 by default. Any questions for runtime environment?
Not so much on runtime environment specifically, but there is a question about pricing. How does the pricing work for this compared to like VMs?
Pricing works in the manner that by default, you'll get 500 minutes free for each month. It resets every month. So you basically get free compute for 500 minutes in Azure Automation. After that, I believe it's 0.0020 zeros and then a 2. So, or for the Americans, US dollars per minute of execution. And it can be a bit difficult to calculate this because personally I have no clue how much time our automation production is running each month. But just to take a bit of examples, I took some screenshots of the cost management. This one is cost management for a month, so about $400. And for that month, we had almost 100,000 jobs running over the month, and it's just split up by day, so about 3,000 jobs a day. Quite a lot. And for a week, about 20K, and the given cost was $95. And just for a day, a given Monday, it said 1.81K down here, but for some reason it goes up to 3.5K. So I think there might have been a bug in the metric when I took the screenshot. I would trust this number more than this one in this case. And per day for all Azure Automation at my work, it's about $15 on weekdays and then maybe $10 on weekends. Depends a bit on how much you use it. So it's cheap, but still cost a bit. And I haven't found a way to correctly calculate the amount of minutes that our Azure Automation runs. But something that could be used for it is going into the log analytics workspace. and then creating some KQL query on the table. Now I don't have log analytics enabled for this workspace, but in a production use case, you probably would. And then you could summarize it by the start time and the end time based on the job ID to calculate the amount of minutes a given job has run or a given set of jobs over the given time frame. I wanted to show it, but guess I didn't set up log analytics. Tough luck. Yeah. Any questions in regards to pricing other than that?
Looks clean.
Looks clean. Great. And just to show that we could also create a runbook on the given environment that we just created. We have it right here. It's runtime version 7.4. And just giving it a random name. Bam, 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 bam. And now I just publish this one, and it is only when I press start here, it'll only run the published edition. If I went into edit again here and just click on save instead, it will be in the state of an edit out here in edit. But when I press on the start, it should actually only start the published version and not the edit version. So let's just see if I am right. And for all the Azure Automation jobs, it'll, even though you run it on a hybrid worker, it will always go into a queue before it's starting the job. And this is just to build the sandbox or the Docker container. I'm not sure exactly how Microsoft is handling it in the backend, but basically this container has to be queued up as well and set into production before it can run this automation. And looking at the output, we only got the PS version and not the write output. So just a small note, if it's in edit, it won't run the code that is in edit. And if you wanted to move it back to production, you can just revert it to the published one. So you have this kind of step stool in between. And if we wanted to run this code, the only way to do it is using the test pane. Using the test pane. Not sure why it errored out, but it's Azure. And we're live streaming, so demo guards.
While this loads, we have a question.
Yeah.
Can we connect a Git repo or CI/CD pipeline to the runbooks?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can. I'll get to it right after this one. Just to show that the edited version was running, we got the PS version table and we got the output from test. So goes to show you, have to publish before you run it. Yeah, let's just move on to source control, just because that is something that is nice for everyone. We have under account settings, we have a source control pane. Within this one, we can add a source control and give it a name. Choose your source control type. It can be GitHub, it can be Azure DevOps, and some other Azure DevOps. I haven't worked in Azure DevOps, so I don't know them. I only use GitHub, and then we can authenticate. Bam, 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 bam. If it wanted to redirect me. Well, let's just do something else then. We can also do it programmatically instead. And I included a nice, this is how you do it kind of thing here. So let's just launch a VS Code. To do this with a PAT or personal access token from GitHub, we'll first need to create the personal access token. And to do this, you basically go to your account in GitHub, go to settings, go to developer settings, and let me just zoom a bit because I want to make sure everyone can see. So go to your account, go to settings, scroll down, developer settings, personal access token, and choose the tokens classic. Generate a new token classic. Give it a name, Azure Automation. And for this one, it'll need the repo access, and you have to choose the top level. I tried testing it with just selecting everything below, but that doesn't work for some reason. Don't know why, just choose the top level. You'll need the repo, and you'll need the admin repo hook. This one basically allows it to see when a new commit comes into your Azure or into your repo in GitHub. And once you have selected those two, you generate a token. You have your token here, and this token is a token that is used for your account. So anyone that is currently watching can take this token and manipulate my account. So let me just delete it and then create a new one where you can't see it.
What if your internet died right before that? That would be tragic.
Then I'm pretty sure I would have gotten on the phone and then removed it.
Yeah.
And just because. If I could copy it.
Can you make it just a little bit bigger? Or you
Yeah.
just...
It was just to get the credentials in. And if we wanted to in clear text. So first, let's connect to Azure using the AZ module. And let me see where that disappeared off to. Security, security, security. Right. And once we have connected to Azure Automation, normally you would have to set your context to the given subscription where your Azure Automation is within. But since this is an MSFT tenant and I only have one subscription, I don't have to, but just so you know. Then you'll need to initialize your PAT token. And then you have a small set of params just to take it one by one. It's the resource group, PDQ, the automation account, PDQ automation, a name for this GitHub synchronization, the repo URL that you're going to sync, the source type, in this case it's GitHub, and the folder path for your scripts or automation, and then the branch that Azure Automation should have source control to. This could be a sub branch, for example, development or something else. And finally, a PAT token as well. And that should be it. Now we set up Azure Automation, source control. Let me just see if I can find it again. Damn it. Going into source control and just clicking on refresh. We have a new source type. And by default, it will not create it with autosync. So currently it hasn't synced anything. looking at the sync jobs for this one, you'll also see that there's been no synchronization at all. For production use, you would probably use autosync, save that, and I'm actually not sure if it will start a sync just by clicking on that, but we can click on the given GitHub synchronization and then just start a synchronization. This will create a job in the sync jobs, and looking at this one, it'll have a sync job ID. It's currently queued. It has a creation time. It'll take a bit before it has a start time, and finally it'll have an end time as well. And I'm actually not sure if this is just a backend Azure Automation job that is running, to be honest. I haven't looked that deep into it, but and just another thing while this is running. If you're going to press on start sync, this is a full synchronization, which means it'll remove all the runbooks and add them again. In most cases, it will include the schedule and the schedule link on these runbooks, but it will not keep the tags if you have tagged your runbooks. It'll just remove them completely, which is quite annoying to find out after you have implemented something that is using the tags on your runbooks. Damn. We'll also need to add our system assigned managed identity contributor access to our Azure Automation before it can add automation runbooks. So let's just go ahead and do that. As soon as you create an automation account, it will by default have a system assigned managed identity. And to give it permissions, you can basically go to the identity pane, go to permissions, Azure role assignments, find your subscription. I only have one, so it's pretty easy. Press on add role assignment, select a scope. For this one, you can choose subscription resource group. Normally you just go for the least privileged. In this case, it would be resource group, the resource group you want, and then the given role that you want to add it to. This one said it needed contributor, so let's just add that. And that might take a bit. Let's see if it works now. Bit annoying you can create it, but you'll just get an error. But the more you know. Any questions in the meantime?
No questions on this part.
No questions.
So just while this loads, I've kind of
Yeah.
noticed something about Azure Automation and maybe other things as well. It seems like it's kind of quick to get started, potentially, if you kind of take the shorter path, maybe don't connect it to source control and some of those other things. But if you're actually going to use it, you're probably going to want to make sure you actually do everything properly that's going to make it sustainable for the future. Name your resource groups the appropriate way and that kind of thing. Does that sound about right from what you've seen with Azure Automation?
Well, to be honest, from my point of view, the only thing you actually need to do before you deploy it in production, and that's just a personal take, set up source control. That's number one. Always have source control so you can actually see your changes, and you can just, if for some reason somebody deletes a runbook, you can just run a synchronization again and you have it back. That's the number one. Do that first, because that's going to save you some time in the long run. Second up is probably setting up a hybrid worker if you're hybrid in your organization, because you'll get much more benefit in having all your automation in one place instead of having it spread out across multiple servers or even multiple file shares. That's at least my take on it. Further than that, if you have those two things and you want to integrate with on-prem environment, you should use a custom account, a service account in your Active Directory that is used to connect to your given on-prem environment. We got an error here, so let's just see. I have an invalid runbook name. So it will also look at the runbook names, and I personally don't remember what is allowed and what is not allowed in the naming scheme for Azure Automation. At work, we usually use approved verbs. So, for example, get AD user, or for this instant, get PDQ user, something like it, and then just push that up. And that one as well. And just for reference, Dustin, if he is in the crowd, that is not a good commit message. No,
Can you
that was a
control
bit
plus?
of
What does
the,
it say?
just says demo.
Oh, demo. Yeah.
Gives
Boo.
no reference at all, other than it is something I did in the demo. Let's try it one more time. And let's, while this is running, just move on to something else. Then we can have a look at it afterwards again, see if it worked. Hybrid workers, your entry to your on-prem environment from Azure is basically a hybrid worker group. Within this group, you can have multiple VMs. If you have multiple sites and you don't allow connections from one site to another, then you could have a worker on each site, even have a hybrid worker group on each site if you wanted to separate it even more. And it's basically just a server that has been Arc enabled. I wanted to do Windows because that is what I'm used to at work, but I didn't have a Windows license. So I ended up setting it up with Ubuntu 22.04 because that is the latest that is supported in Azure Automation. Otherwise, I would have done one on 24 instead. I'm not a Linux guy at all, so it didn't quite work as I wanted to. I wanted to get PowerShell runtime version 7.4 to work, but for some reason, I don't know why, it just didn't want to work. But 7.2 works just fine. And to use Linux hybrid workers, you'll need at least PowerShell version 6. But I mean, Azure Automation is supporting 7.2 as the only or latest one, and 7.4, so you would probably install one of those instead. And then you also get the added benefit of the higher version and more things. And just to show that it actually works on the hybrid worker as well, we have this one. It basically connects to Azure with the managed identity that we have for this automation account. This also works on-prem without providing any credentials, and the managed identity doesn't have any credentials, so you'll never have to renew this. And as soon as you're done with this Azure Automation account and delete it, the managed identity will be removed as well, so you don't have any cleanup afterwards. Let's just try and start it. While it's queuing up, do we have any questions?
Looks like they're talking about Steins Peterson says you can of course start just set up your Git repos with a pipeline that will deploy directly without using the source control link in Azure Automation, as long as you have the correct permissions. So just covering some different approaches.
Yeah. Another thing, a limitation of sorts on the source control within Azure Automation, it doesn't support the deployment of PowerShell version 7.2, 7.1, 7.4. It only supports 5.1, which is a bit annoying when you have multiple versions allowed in Azure Automation. It just seems like they set it up once and then forgot all about everything else in regards to the versions of PowerShell. So the version control or source control in Azure Automation is only for PowerShell version 5.1. That is the only runbooks it will create. I mean, it says it's running, but it is a bit slow.
It's kind of the part about like troubleshooting this kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
You
it is
gotta
slow.
change it, wait, see if it works.
Yeah.
Oh, one little tiny change, do it again.
Yeah. And that is something that is a bit annoying because you don't have the same control over your breakpoints or troubleshooting that you have when developing in Visual Studio Code. And in regards to the output here, it seems like a bug from Azure Automation sites when running on hybrid workers using anything other than 5.1. So it seems like there is some development missing from Microsoft sides because the output is just a bit wonky. But the basics is you have Visual Studio Professional subscription, which is the subscription we're in. With this subscription ID, this account, this Azure Cloud, and this tenant. And that's it for hybrid workers and running code on it. Again, personally, I would just stick with 5.1 for Azure Automation. It is possible to run 7.2. It is possible to run 7.4. I would stick to 5.1 on hybrid workers at least, because that is giving the best experience in regards to the logging as well, because it can be a bit hard to troubleshoot this, especially because a object like this one, this is the get AZ context object, where it has the name, subscription, account, and so on, is getting split out on multiple lines in the output, which is quite annoying. I think so, at least. In 5.1, it wouldn't do that. I can't show it to you because I'm running on a Linux server, which doesn't run 5.1. A bit annoying, a bit of a roadblock I hit with the missing license for Windows. It doesn't work for an evaluation version of Windows. Yeah, and let's see if the source control synchronization worked this time. Yeah, seems like the full control or full sync worked. So we now have a Azure Automation Runbook called getpdquuser.ps1, and in the incremental one that it ran because I committed something to my main branch, ran as well. So I didn't even have to run this full sync. And just to show it, we have the new runbook published as 5.1. And within this one, we have the code that we had in Visual Studio Code. And if we were to make some changes, I mean, I got jealous when Andrew popped into the chat with a great background of his vacation. So had
We
to do
didn't
it.
comment on that. Yeah, we both have beach backgrounds.
Well, I had to afterwards.
Yeah.
Got jelly. As soon as I made that change and synchronized it to Azure Automation, or rather to GitHub, it will run another incremental update to the source control. So it will not run a complete synchronization. It will only run the given incremental update for that specific runbook that I made changes to. So if I made multiple changes, it would take all of them from that given commit. I only made one change, so it should only take one. And it is a bit slow. Queued up. I actually think we're nearing the end as well, but I will add a few more things just as some gotchas and nice to know as well. Let's just jump to those while that one is running. There's a bit of a README on the, let me just post the repo in the chat. There's a short introduction on how you would integrate the source control using the AZ module and the AZ automation source control commandlet. So you could just copy paste that and then you have it on your own environment. And note another thing for the source control. Even though you set your personal access token to never expire, Azure Automation's source control integration will automatically expire after 1 year. It seems like some cookies that might be dropped at some point, but we tried reaching out to Microsoft when we created an personal access token that lasted forever, and after 1 year it stopped working. They just said, yeah, working as intended. So a bit annoying, but you have to refresh it every year. Security, I'm guessing.
Can you just create like a calendar event and just
basically,
yeah, you have
there's
to, otherwise you
no
just
alerting
forget.
on it.
Yeah,
Either forget it and surprise when you merge something into your branch and it isn't updating in Azure Automation, or set a calendar event or something else. Set up a runbook to monitor when a last modified, or rather a last synchronization job has run. If it's more than a week or a month, depending on how many changes you throw up, then set an alert to your whatever system you have. And just to show the source control, it only modified that one file that we had in our source control. So yeah. Another thing which is nice to know is by default when using either Azure to run your automation or using a Windows hybrid worker, this doesn't work for Linux, but you'll get these internal commandlets which are a bit faster and that Microsoft at least recommends that you use instead of the AZ module to, for example, get automation variables or credentials in Azure Automation. So instead of it saying get AZ automation variable, it's just get automation variable. There's a reference link for it here. Note that it doesn't work for Linux, but it's recommended for Windows and if you're only running in Azure. Another thing, which is a kind of a bug, I at least also had some trouble with back when we migrated to extension-based hybrid workers instead of agent-based, is that you have to explicitly assign permissions to these two paths, read permissions and read execute, for that service account that you're using for your hybrid workers, if you have a user access control enabled on the system, which you should have. And if you update Azure Connected Machine Agent, these permission is wiped and you'll have to set them again. Also really annoying, but nice to know. Something I actually forgot to cover is modules in Azure Automation. If I can find them again. That's because we're on runtime environments. By default, if you add a new module here, this is a system generated one, so we can't modify that. By default, if you add a module here, it will not pull the dependencies down as well. Let's just see here if we can find one. If we take Microsoft Graph Groups, search for this one on the PowerShell gallery. That one. 229.1. Go to the package details. Let me just zoom a bit for good measure. We can see that it has a dependency to Microsoft Graph Authentication 229.1. But if we just select this one and install it, and go out and go back in. Did I not click on save? I guess not. It will only install Microsoft Graph Groups. And you can't use Microsoft Graph Groups because it has a dependency to Microsoft Graph Authentication to 29.1. So that is something you'll have to handle yourself, at least for anything other than 5.1. If you want to deploy a module like this one, for example, Microsoft Graph Groups, there is also a button to deploy it to Azure Automation. Unfortunately, there isn't an option to deploy it to a specific runtime environment. So it will only deploy it to Azure Automation Runtime Environment 5.1 for some reason. I haven't seen any way to get around this, but it is a bit annoying, and it is what I believe he was called Insane ran into yesterday, where he had some different versions of the Microsoft Graph Authentication compared to another Microsoft Graph module. Yeah. And I'm guessing that it is running in the background because I already clicked on OK. But yeah, that would be imported in the PowerShell 5.1, and we can see that it is currently importing it. So a bit of a gotcha, a bit of a annoyance with Azure Automation, but nice to know at least. Another thing is Runtime Environment 7.2 is supported in Azure Automation, but PowerShell version 7.2 is not supported any longer by the PowerShell product group, I believe. So your support for PowerShell Runtime version 7.2 might vary a bit, which is also another reason to just stick to 5.1 for Azure Automation. Personally, I would love to use 7.4, but as long as there's this annoyance in regards to output from a given runbook that is running, I won't make the switch. And just to showcase it as well, because I forgot all about it, you have some default variables. If you have some data that you don't necessarily want to be static in your script, you can add it to a variable here, and then you can just pull that variable in to your given Azure Automation script or runbook. And if you use it in multiple script, you'll only have to change it one place. The only thing that can be annoying with this is there's no version control of this variable. So if somebody goes in to change it to, I don't know, something like that, you can't see what it previously was without having to dig through activity logs and having to see what's changed and who changed it and so on. There's no easy way to go back to a previous value. And another thing for those who hate managing credentials in your scripts, you can add your credentials here, and then just you'll get a credential object, a PowerShell credential object, when you write get a set automation credential into your runbooks. And that's about it. You also have certificates. If you're using hybrid workers with a service account, you can just install the certificates in that service account user context, and then just import it using the thumbprint in your runbooks.
Nice. Awesome.
Any questions or
I don't
concerns?
see any follow-up questions. We'll give them a second to ask, but I guess now if they're up and running and they're using Azure Automation, I guess the real work begins of writing the PowerShell that will do all the magical things in your environment.
Definitely.
Awesome. We're
Thank
getting
you,
some
Stein.
praise, Morten. Morten, thank you so much for today's presentation. If people, they run through this on their own machines or in their own environments, they run into some issues, where can we find you to maybe get your perspective on things?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Name is Morten Mynster. My LinkedIn messages is open, so anyone can write to me. Currently working at Bestseller. Other than that, you can reach me on Discord. I won't necessarily answer straight away or have the time straight away, but I promise to get back as long as I don't get bombarded by 1,000 people.
I think we'll be
Otherwise,
safe
ask
for
in
now.
the PDQ Discord, PowerShell scripting channel. People are friendly and love to help out.
People are friendly. You're friendly. That's discord.gg/PDQ PowerShell scripting channel. A lot of good stuff in there. And we're getting trolled in the chat. It might be my little cousins who are here, or my nephews rather, who are here on a family trip right now, trolling me in the chat. But Morten, thank you so much. And if you didn't know, every single Wednesday, PowerShell Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, whatever time, catch it after the fact as well. We're learning PowerShell all year long and into next year. So Morten, thanks again for joining. And thank you everybody out there for watching. Morten, any final inspirational messages for people who are just getting started with Azure Automation?
Get started, run your automation, run it on the cloud, run it on-prem environment, do it wherever you'd like. It works great. We have about 100K jobs a month. We rarely have issues, and for production environment, I would suggest 3 hybrid workers. That's just my take. Yeah, and other than that, remember to enjoy your vacation, Andrew.
I certainly will. It was awesome to hang out with some friends like you all. But yeah, shout out to nephew, shout out to Morten. Oops, let me do a side by side. I don't want to go solo dolo, but yeah, we'll catch you next week. Take care, everybody.